Welcome to Just Ride Bikes and the latest generation Trek Domane, the US company's endurance all-road bike, built for speed and maximum comfort over rough roads. And looks pretty, doesn't it? What a paint finish that is. Looks way more interesting than all the greys and blacks we're so used to in the bike world, and they call it glow stick, and I think it's a fabulous name for a fabulous paint finish. And underneath the paint is the SL6 and not the range-topping SLR, which I'm glad of because the bike doesn't cost a fortune. This model here is £3,900, but the range starts from £2,800. But the bike here, the cheapest you can buy with an electronic group set in the shape of Shimano's 105 Di2. So the price looks pretty good, but a giant Defy with the same group set and similar carbon wheels is £600 less, and even a Specialized Roubaix SL8 comp is cheaper, but that Specialized doesn't have carbon wheels, which this one does have. So similar, but not the same. So in the price department, it scores pretty well, but not as good as other brands out there, which are more competitive. But despite that, there is lots on offer here. And today I'm going to review the bike and share my likes and dislikes, go for a ride to see how it performs and handles, and my verdict at the end of the video. But first, let's talk about the frame and all the details on it. So the Domane is the company's endurance all-road platform, and it's 12 years old now. I still remember when the bike first launched all those years ago, when Fabian Cancellara Spartacus was key to the development of the bike. A bike built to tame the cobbles, the pavé of Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix, as all were endurance bikes 10 years ago, when the road bikes, the race bikes of the time, didn't have space or comfort for those cobble classics. But these days they ride the regular aero bikes with fat tyres, so endurance bikes are no longer used by the pros. But that's no bad thing, because we can all benefit, enjoy the comfort these bikes offer, and that sort of pro DNA still present in a bike like this. So this is now the 4th generation model. It changed quite a bit over the years, but the fundamentals remain the same. And this generation actually launched back in 2022-23. So it is a few years old, which does suggest there might be a generation 5 in the future possibly, but I have no idea on Trek's timeline. But for now, this is the current generation Domane. And a key feature of the bike is what they call the Isospeed decoupler, and essentially a device to separate the seat post and seat tube from the frame to allow a saddle to move back and forth more when you encounter bumps and cracks and ripples in the road. And that movement of the saddle gives you a smoother ride. And the same idea as having a bendy seat post or some rear suspension. So that's the key feature of the bike. The previous generation had the same, similar Isospeed in the front end with a bendy steering tube. As scary as that sounds, that gone. Partly because of the advent or popularity of wide tyres. So as tyres have got wider, that need for a complex frame design with bendy carbon and suspension features has been reduced quite a bit, and does beg the question of whether the Isospeed will still remain in the future or if it's still relevant on a bike right now. We'll find out when we go for a ride in a few minutes. The Trek Domane was one of the first bikes to really boast big tyre clearance and a 38mm clearance with no mudguards fitted, down to 35 with fenders, mudguards fitted. It's still not quite class leading like it used to be when it first launched, but it's still up there with other endurance road bikes. The giant Defy is 38, but the likes of the NV and the Special Roubaix are 40, and the latest generation Cannondale Synapse is now up to 42. So probably wide enough clearance for most people. These are 32s as standard, fit a 35, 38, but if you want to fit a 40mm wide tyre like the brand new Pirelli P0, then clearance might get a bit tight. So I could see an update in the future where a bike has bigger tyre clearance. Other key details include semi-internal routing up front with a regular round handlebar, which I'm a big fan of, and the brake hoses go underneath the handlebar and underneath the stem into the frame, and that means you're free to swap the handlebar and the stem if you want a narrow handlebar, a different shape handlebar. This is alloy. I could say a carbon fiber upgrade be a nice way to improve the weight and give a bit more compliance up front, or go for a longer stem if you want. The Domane was one of the first bikes to have in-frame storage. I think Specialized did it first on their mountain bikes, but Trek were quick to adopt this format, this concept on the Domane, and it is one of the better systems on the market, with a nice big lever that makes opening that compartment very, very easy. The opening is a bit small perhaps compared to what Specialized are doing with their SWAT, but better than other systems on the market like the 3T I reviewed recently. So not the best, but not the worst, somewhere in the middle towards the better end. And that saves having a saddlebag here, and then you have a rear light on the rails, as I've done here with a small light from Nog. And Trek do their own integration of front and rear lights with their blinder series as well, if you want to keep with the Trek system of accessories. The bike, of course, has mudguard fender mounts. There's bento mounts on the top tube, an extra mount on the down tube. So for long distance riding, doing some touring, light bike packing on the road, you can fit all those accessories quite easily. And this actual bike here, a size 56 with that 105 Di2 group set, weighs 8.9 kilograms on my scales. So it's on the heavier end of what I'd expect for a carbon bike with carbon wheels and a 105 Di2 group set. And that giant Defy I mentioned earlier is a touch lighter. Part of the reason for the weight are the wheels. They are carbon fiber, Bontrager's own carbon wheels. Bontrager is the accessory brand of Trek, but they're quite heavy, nearly 1,700 grams, and they're quite narrow for a modern wheel set, just 19.5mm internal, which is a bit of a hindrance if you are planning to upgrade a bike to wider tyres, like a 35, a 38, or even squeeze a 40 in there. You might get some light bulbing of that wide tyre on that narrow rim. So good wheels, yes, the carbon fibre, fantastic, but a bit heavy and definitely a bit narrow. So that's an overview of the bike. I'm gonna get changed and join me out on the road, and we'll see how it performs and rides and handles. Right, here we go then. And riding the Domane, it's easy to be reminded of just why this bike is so popular in the endurance category. I've been fortunate to ride every generation, and it's just as good as I remember. And the comfort is fantastic. Through the saddle, it's so smooth, but it does take some getting used to, because at first, on the first ride, it feels like you have a slow puncher in the rear tyre. It's so soft, it's so supple, but it just soaks up the roughest roads, the coarsest tarmac, the bumps and cracks and potholes so well. And it's smoother than any race bike with the same size tyres. So yes, tyres and tyre width is very important, but that Isospeed decoupler clearly does a very good job indeed. However, you can't sadly adjust the Isospeed anymore like in the old version, and that means the amount it works will depend on how heavy or light you are. So a heavy rider will get more flex from the seat post, but even for me, weighing about 68 kilos right now, it still flexes loads. You can see it and feel it flexing between your legs. So that, coupled with the wide tyres at low pressures, just gives a fantastic comfort. It's so supple on rough roads and does feel, I know it's cheesy, like a magic carpet, like the comfiest armchair. And it's definitely as smooth, as comfy in the saddle as the Endurace from Canyon or the Roubaix from Specialized, and definitely smoother than a giant Defy or the Cannondale Synapse. That comfort from the saddle isn't quite matched through the handlebars, and while it's not hard at the front, it's definitely firmer than a saddle and not as smooth as the Specialized Roubaix with a Future Shock, but on a par with a giant Defy or the Canyon Endurace. And that's always been my bugbear with the Domane. Super comfort out back and harder up front, and sort of bike of two halves really. And it's nice to have some comfort through the front end. A carbon handlebar upgrade might give more comfort at the front end, perhaps a bit more compliance from the carbon versus the alloy on this bike. So it could be an upgrade down the road, or go to wide tyres. But even with 32, it's still reasonably well balanced and a generally very smooth ride and definitely a nicer bike to ride over crappy UK roads in the winter, doing a long training rides than any race bike. Smoother than my Carnago C68, smoother than a Tarmac SL8, as smooth as that bike is. So comfort, yeah, definitely the hallmark of the bike. What the Domane does sadly lack, at least in this build, is any real sense of urgency, of speed. The weight is quite high, and I've got to be honest, it does feel quite sluggish. And when riding with a club at the weekend, I can tell from the power meter pedals and my own feedback through my body that I'm definitely working harder to keep up when the pace is really getting high. So compared to the Giant Defy, which is a much sportier endurance bike, doesn't have that reward when you are punching on the road. So this Trek Domane, in this SL6 build at least, is definitely a bike suited to the cyclists who want maximum comfort and wants that nice relaxed geometry, a nice relaxed fit, where you put your back out, a nice wide range gears, and good contact points, and nothing that really needs replacing out of the box. But there are areas where you could potentially unleash more performance with a few upgrades down the line. So good bike to invest in for the future. If you're doing some sporties or Grand Fondos, or want a nice bike for training at the weekends, yeah, I think this Domane is a good option. So, time for my verdict on the Trek Domane SL6, a bike to rush out and buy or one to avoid. Well, there is lots to like. The paint finish, for starters, so bright and vibrant, I love it. Space of wide tyres, mudguard mounts, in-frame storage, and that geometry works extremely well, giving a nice composed, stable ride quality. And the comfort is extremely good, the real ace card of the Domane, but I don't think it's really any better than other bikes out there with less complex frame designs. The Canyon Endurace, for example, with that clever split seat post, is as smooth in the saddle as this bike here, without the Isospeed decoupler. And for outright comfort, the Specialized Roubaix is hard to beat. And the Giant Defy is better value for money and a bit sportier, but not quite as smooth. And the brand new Synapse from Cannondale is definitely slightly firmer, but has bigger tyre clearance than the bike here. So lots to like, depending on what you're looking for and what your priorities are on a road bike. But there's enough here to recommend it. The price is a bit higher and the weight is a bit higher, the main two complaints really. But if the price isn't an issue, you get a good deal on a bike from your local bike shop and you're not too worried about weight, and it's not heavy, it's just a bit heavier than other bikes with similar parts, you will find a really good bike that's fantastic for long rides, really looks after you, amazing comfort, amazing handling, and a very easy bike to live with indeed. So that's my review of the Trek Domane SL6. The most colourful bike I've tested in a long time. So let me know what you think of the review and the bike by dropping a comment down below. And if you want to find out more about the Trek range, then hit their website down below. And if you want to see a review of some other endurance bikes definitely worth checking out in this sort of category, then watch your video right up here. But that is all for today. I'll see you again very soon. Thank you so much for watching.